clip forever, though. We have the memories.
So we're gonna play a new game that I decided to come up with at our off time. It's called Questions for Podcasters, and I have these cards. I'm a big fan of the Dr. John Delony Show. It's made a tremendous impact on my life. It's been one of the prime motivators to get me, to get myself. I would say mentally right. Dr. John Delony. He's a big fan. I know, Dr. Delony, you're a big fan of the show. I know you're watching right now. You're listening on your podcast side. But he's part of the Ramsey Solution team with Dave Ramsey. He is a brilliant guy, but he also speaks to a level that we can all identify with because he's a guy from Texas. He's very down to earth, and I love the advice that he gives and all the stories that he shares. At the end of each show, a couple times a week, he recites lyrics, and sometimes they're from metal bands, which I'm a closeted metalhead, so I appreciate that. Recently, he ended the show with Disturbed, which was pretty cool. So I got this pack of cards, and I sent Dustin a set as well for because I felt like it. There's his cards right there. There's my set of cards. This is the Questions for Humans Guys Night card set. It's on Ramsey Solutions website. Look for Questions for Humans. I got a bunch of these. So I got the regular pack, which is the Friends pack. I've also got the second edition Friends pack, which I have not opened yet. I've also got the Workplace edition in case someday I go to the office and I want to get to know my coworkers more. And just in case I happen to meet a lovely lady, I got the dating set. So
there you go.
I'm prepared.
Yeah,
I'm prepared. I'm getting to know people. I'm going to get to go to people on a deeper level. And so that means that Dustin and I are going to get to know ourselves on a deeper level on this podcast, and you're going to listen to it. And if you don't like it, tough beans. Sorry. Get your own podcast and you do your own thing. So I'm going to lead off here.
Okay.
I've already shuffled these cards, and I've got my card right here. So Dustin, your question is, and we're going to do one. We'll probably do one per episode for the next couple episodes.
Okay.
So Dustin, what was your favorite video game as a kid?
Oh, as a kid, here we go. This is
perfect for you because you're a video game guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't know what's coming. I don't know if I'm gonna have a good answer, but I got a great answer for this one.
All right.
The reason that I got so into video games, and if my sister was watching, she would be like, "Oh my God, I remember." My cousin Josh, who's older than me, significantly older, he used to play a game called Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES.
Yes.
I never played the arcade edition. I will admit I never played the arcade edition.
Mm-hmm. Which is just regular Punch-Out.
Yes. But I will say, too, that we had the Mr. Dream version of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. So I didn't technically ever play against Mike Tyson. I was always trying to get to Mr. Dream. Spoilers, I never got there. But that game, to me, is the epitome. It started my fascination with video games, and it still is probably one of my favorite video games of all time, just because it's simple and it's all about timing, and the concept is easy to figure out, but it is not hard to master, but there's definitely, you've got to figure out timing. You've got to figure out different things for each boxer that you face. If I were to talk to people of my age and maybe a little older and a little younger, I could say, how do you beat Don Flamenco? And somebody's going to be able to tell me. When do you use a star punch against Bald Bull during his charge? It's game.
How do you know when Piston Honda's going to punch you?
Yes, it's the eyebrows. Now,
the eyebrows.
Some of these characters do not age well. You have to realize that it's a different time. Okay. And
Glass Joe, the Kaiser,
yes.
Piston Honda, Don Flamenco.
Yeah.
Again, it's funny. I talked about this on Snowman in the Morning. stereotypes exist for a reason.
Yes.
Sometimes for a bad reason, but they exist for a reason.
Yes. And
King
was
Hippo.
there now Al used to, my Uncle Al would tell me, oh, I played Punch Out. He goes, do you remember Pizza Pasta? I'm like, I do not remember Pizza Pasta. Pizza Pasta was from the arcade version, which I never played. But Soda Popinski kind of looked like my dad. That always messed with me too. But the game is just so deep. And also you could practice. It was one of the first games to my memory that it wasn't a save state, right? Because we didn't have the memory on the cartridges to be able to save the games. They weren't that sophisticated.
You had to wait until the next fight to take a pee break.
Yes, or you could pause the game and then just hope that you run back in, but you don't run too fast, because if you stop too quick, the Nintendo's going to reset. It was a whole thing. But
load the cartridge.
You could put in the passcode. You could put in the passcode and get to like Don Flamenco. You could kind of jump around the game a little bit. And also to watch somebody who was very proficient at Punch Out play it was a thing of beauty. My cousin Josh was very good at it. I wasn't as good. I got to be okay. I could get to a certain point in the game, but I never got sick of trying. And the testament to its craftsmanship is in, I believe it was 2020 or 2019, somebody still found something about new in Punch Out that almost nobody knew, and that is you watch the audience members. Now, there are certain ones where like the audience member will stand up, and that's supposed to be a signal of use a star punch now. But I forget what fight it was. It might have been in this Piston Honda 2 fight, but there's a fan that you watch, he blinks his eyes, and that's when you're supposed to throw a punch. Somebody found that in 2020, and it shows how deep this game was for the time. Also, shout out to Mario as the special guest referee.
I was going to say Mario was the guest referee.
Yeah. I love
this.
I love Punch Out. So Punch Out, my favorite game as a kid, still one of my favorite games today.
Yep. Yeah. It's a great answer. Super Punch, Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I remember the commercials for it too.
Oh, see, I don't remember that many.
And you could never, even when you use a star punch, it was impossible to beat Mike Tyson, because he was so. The creators of that game made Tyson so dang quick because he was so dang quick.
Yes.
In real life.
Yeah, he's like unbelievably fast. The furthest I ever got in that game, and this was just when I was on an incredible run, I only got to this guy once. I got to Super Macho Man, and I thought he was fast, and I just couldn't get past him. I couldn't get to Tyson. But there's just so much depth in that game. And then also you could press select during the you remember the little scenes where Doc, your trainer, is trying to pump you up or whatever. There was a little cheat. You could press select, and if you did it, he would start patting your chest faster, and you'd get just a little bit of extra life at the beginning of the next round. You'd get your life bar would increase, but if you tried to do it too much, then he'd start patting you slower, and you'd lose some of your life, or I suppose stamina, in that game. Just a masterpiece of a game, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember back in the day when we had the NES, like our family would get really excited for whoever's playing to make an achievement. Like my brother Jim was one of the first to was the first in our family to get the last level of Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, okay.
We figured out the trick where if you hit the shell enough, you can get one up and increase the number of lives you had. And we saw those funky characters when you were past a certain amount of lives, because I guess the system it was limited because it was 8-bit. It was limited to what it could do for how many lives you could have. So it would give you a character, it would give you a little character or icon instead of the actual number of lives that you had. So, but I remember so distinctly about Jim, that Jim was the first of our family to get to the end of Super Mario Brothers. He didn't quite make it. He didn't quite beat the game. But I remember him getting there. I remember getting excited when Mike Tyson's Punch Out came out, and we got to Mike Tyson, and we absolutely just flailed. Not failed, but flailed.
It's tough. It's a real tough. And I will say, still one of the craziest things that I've ever seen. And I'm gonna out him because I think this is an accomplishment. I don't think he'd be angry with me. But there was an older kid that was friends with my best friend's older brother, and his name was John Keegan. And we were playing Punch Out one day, and John had his arm in a sling. And he's like, "Oh, I'm pretty good at Punch Out. I could probably get to Mike Tyson." And we're like, "John, your arm's in a sling." He's like, "I could do it. I could do it one-handed." And he got to Mike Tyson one-handed. Now, he didn't beat Mike Tyson, but he got there one-handed. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. He was really good at the game. So shout out to you, John Keegan, if you're watching, and you're still probably the biggest Jerry Rice fan I ever knew.
All right, I guess it's my turn then.
Yes, and with this card that I just drew, I would say that we should institute a rule, not because we're afraid to answer these questions, but we each get one veto. There might be something we don't feel like talking about. There might be something. So we'll each get one veto if the card hits a little too close for the airwaves. Mm-hmm. But the question I drew was, when was the last time you cried your eyes out?
Whew.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. And it's something that I think most men don't really talk about all that much. But
all right, I'll admit it.
Okay.
I'll fess up.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's actually back in. Actually, it's been kind of a year of weird things happening with me and my family too. Mm-hmm. I had my heart broken a couple of times by the same woman. That was something. My mom almost passing away. That was certainly really scary. So I've had quite a few episodes during my prayer times and during my quiet time where I'm bawling my eyes out because my heart was broken. Yeah. And that I wasn't sure if my mom was going to be with us. Mm-hmm. I mean, back in February, she's going to the hospital for a myriad of things, one of them being her heart. Couldn't figure out why her blood pressure was so low, or why, her pulse was fine, but her blood pressure was low. And we weren't sure what was going on. We weren't sure she was going to make it. And I remember sitting in talking to my siblings, and we all agreed what was going on with mom. But if this is the end, this is the end. And we were all in agreements with it. And then all of a sudden she got seen by a cardiac surgeon, and they said, "Oh, we can figure this out. She just needs a new valve." Mm-hmm. If we get her a new valve, or we put a balloon in, the blood flow, because what happened was that the blood flow going to her heart had reversed. So when it came to her aortic valve, the blood wasn't flowing correctly.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually, I wouldn't say spurting out like like a hose, but it wasn't going to the appropriate valve. So what they did was that they said, "All right, we're going to try this. We're going to go in, we're going to replace her. All right." So they said, you have the option of either replacing the valve, or we put it in a balloon, we enlarge the valve, but you have to come in 3 to 6 months later and get it enlarged again. And my mom said, "Let's just get it over with." And as soon as that happened, her fortunes reversed.
Yeah.
And she, like, the swelling went down in her legs, the color of her skin, because not, in addition to the bad valve, the aortic stenosis, she also had cirrhosis of the liver. Mm. And because she has too much fat built up in her liver. Yeah. That cleared up. And she went back to the rehab center where she was. She's home now. Thankfully, 4 weeks, she's about a month into being home. But as soon as the valve was replaced, things just started turning around.
Yeah.
And now I think she's going to be with us for a very long time.
Yeah, let me just say, from an outside perspective, seeing your mom's bounce back is one of the more incredible stories, and I'm glad. Obviously, it's it's easy for me to say, but I'm so glad that it happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's watching, shout out to her for
I'm sure she is.
one of the most incredible bounce backs that I only witnessed from a very outside perspective. But I remember you filling me in and stuff, and that's why when I drew this card, I said, well, I don't know if he's going to want to answer this, but yeah, it was something to see, that's for sure. And I'm glad she's doing very well now.
Yeah, she's doing a lot better. She's, like I said, she's back home. She's been home for about a month. She's getting physical therapy every other day. She's up and around, scooting around in her walker, and just loving life. And it's a miracle that this is the second time in her life in the last 10, 15 years that she's gone to the brink and she's come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just she's the comeback kid.
Yeah,
in my mind.
As Conrad Thompson would say, she kicked out. She kicked out. Shout out to Conrad if you're watching.
Yeah, shout out to Conrad. We know you're watching, Hey, it's Conrad.
Yeah.
Hey, it's no credentials required.
but since you were so forthcoming answering that, I will also cop to that 2023 has also been, for me, somewhat of a I don't want to say a tumultuous year, but I've had a couple friends go through some issues, which I don't want to get into on here, but that's tough to witness. I have also I am also struggling with a bit of some heartache and things like that. But
yep.
I will say the last time I cried my eyes out was related to, it was very recent. It was related to some of the stuff I'm going through right now, but mostly it's related to my dad. My dad, he is currently suffering from the early stages of Alzheimer's, and that's been tough to deal with, especially because you just know what the road ahead could potentially be, and it's not a good one. So that's the last time that something got to me, and I think we, not to get all deep on here, but we as men,
power through it, Dust.
we as men, I think, need to be a little more open with our emotions, and open talking about it, because there's nothing wrong with it. Now, I will cop to it. I'm probably a little more emotional than some people are. I mean, I don't know what's going on with me, but ever since, like, I'd say there was probably a turning point when I turned like 37. I was watching A Football Life and I bawled my eyes out. Now, in my defense, that was right around the time, it was recently after my mom passed away, and I'm like, oh, I gotta watch Football Life. I gotta chill out, and I turn it on, and it is the Pat Summerall episode. And they have, if you've ever seen it, they have that opening where John Madden, they show Pat Summerall's funeral, and they have John Madden, and he says the thing about, I said goodbye to you when I left NBC, and you came and you worked with me at Fox. And he said, and I said goodbye to you when you decided to step away. And he goes, this is your third goodbye, and this is the hardest. And he said, bye, Pat. And I lost it. I lost it. but ever since then, I'm watching, I'll be watching things on TV, and I'm just like, I was watching a documentary on Yokozuna not too long ago, and that thing got to me. I'm like, what is going on with me? So,
well, I will say this. Sometimes you feel like you're down for the count. I mean, the first 6 months of the year of 2023 have been definitely kind of rough emotionally, but we can only step back and let things hopefully be better from here. I mean, but we have to control. We can only control what we can control.
Yeah.
And that's what a very wise man once told me. My buddy Mike from City Mission, he's the executive director of City Mission. That's what he told me. He says he told us in a sermon once. He says you can only control what you can control. The score will take care of itself, and that's what my modus operandi is. And Dustin, I'm pretty sure that's what your modus operandi is.
Yeah.
Going forward for 2023. So we got 6 months left in the year. We've made we've made it through halfway through the year.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Try to make the best of the rest of the year. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things that helps us just get everything out is doing this podcast.
Yeah, being on the show for sure. It's been one thing to look forward to, and I still have. I'm looking forward to creating many more memories on here. But some of the standouts, I loved having Cole Johnson on for the Thanksgiving show.
And
I loved ranking the sides we had Cole on for the Super Bowl show.
And we had Jared too. And
yes,
Jared,
we had Jared on as
time.
well. And we had, and I loved having Snowman on very recently. Snowman and I got to talking about Dave Niehaus. There's just a lot of. I loved having Wise El Jefe on. All the guests that we've had on have been great.
And Brian many more coming down the pike.
Yeah, Brian Katie was a standout, but it's always nice. And then I do love the episodes where it's you and I, and we just get a chance to talk. And I can't thank you enough for, like I said, you do a lot of the work for this show. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you letting me just kind of show up and vomit in front of a mic for an hour each week. So
it's the